Three young boys, ages just 5, 10, and 12, are sound asleep in a small, cramped back bedroom. The only separation from the rest of the cabin is a thin, hollow core door. If someone so much as coughed in the next room, you would hear it through that door. But just 10 feet away, on the other side of that door, chaos breaks out. Two intruders are inside the living room, and they are using heavy hammers and knives to attack three people who are fighting for their lives. It's brutal. It is so extreme that police would later find a steak knife on the floor, and the steel blade was bent back at a jagged 30-degree angle just from the sheer force of striking bone. But here's the part that doesn't make sense. Despite the struggle, despite the small cabin, the boys in that back room claim that they didn't hear a single noise. Even the neighbors, who were sleeping just 15 feet away in the next cabin, said they didn't hear anything. However, as investigators looked at the scene more closely, there were traces of blood beyond the area where the attack happened, including the near hallway and bedroom areas. Now, to understand how this nightmare started, we have to go back one day to April 11th, 1981. Sue Sharp had just moved her family into cabin 28, deep in the Sierra Nevada foothills. Now, Sue had recently escaped a really toxic marriage. And when she found this place, she honestly felt like she had won the lottery. The rent for this place was only $250 a month. For a single mom on a tight budget, that wasn't just a good deal. It felt like a steal. She looked at this cabin surrounded by tall pines and fresh air, and she told herself this was it. This was the fresh start they needed. She felt this huge weight lift off her shoulders, like she could finally breathe again. The Keddy Resort was the kind of community where kids ran free and nobody even thought about locking their doors. It felt safe. Sue looked at her neighbors and saw friends. She saw a place where she didn't have to look over her shoulder anymore. So, as evening came, the idea of barricading her family inside didn't even cross her mind. It was just a quiet, peaceful mountain night. But Sue misses on detail. Right next door, and I mean literally just 15 feet away, sat cabin 26. A man named Marty Smart lived there. Marty was a vet, and let's just say he had a hair-trigger temper, the kind of guy who snaps if you look at him wrong. And because the cabins were so close together, Marty didn't need binoculars to spy on the Sharp family. He could sit in his own living room, nursing a grudge because he felt Sue had disrespected him. And he could hear their casual conversations drifting through the open windows. Sue thinks she's alone, but she's not. By late Saturday night, everything in cabin 28 is winding down exactly the way it always does. It's just a normal family evening. Sue Sharp is sitting on the sofa in the living room, just finally taking a moment to breathe. She's watching a little TV, maybe reading, just decompressing after a long week of being a single mom to 5 kids. Sue is a planer. She has already set the table for breakfast the next morning, and she has laid out her nice Sunday dress on a chair nearby. I mean, she is fully expecting to wake up when the sun rises, put on that dress, have coffee, and take her family to church. To her, the biggest concern right now is just making sure everyone gets up on time. The house is peaceful, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the quiet of the woods. Meanwhile, the house is full of sleeping kids. You have 12-year-old Tina tucked into her bed in the kids' room, and in the back bedroom, the 3 younger boys, Rick, Greg, and Justin, who was the stepson of the neighbor Marty, are totally passed out. They feel mom is just down the hall. And 14-year-old Sheila? She decides to head over to the neighbor's house in cabin 27 to have a sleepover with a friend. She walks out of the front door, shouting a quick goodbye to her mom. She doesn't hug her or say anything profound because she thinks she's just going to see her in like 8 hours for breakfast. She steps off the porch and into the cool, crisp night air, feeling happy. And finally, you have Sue's oldest son, 15-year-old John, and his best friend, 17-year-old Dana. They are currently standing on the side of a dark road, hitchhiking back from the town of Quincy. Just two teenage boys, shivering a little in the cold, thumbing for a ride. They are probably joking around, just thinking about getting back to the cabin to warm up. They have no idea that they are racing home toward a nightmare. At exactly 7:45 a.m. the next morning, April 12th, Sheila Sharp wakes up inside the neighbor's cabin. The sun is fully up, but it is one of those brisk, overcast mornings in the mountains. Sheila stretches and hops out of bed because she knows the drill. She has to run back home, shower, and get changed into her Sunday best for church. She says a quick goodbye to the neighbors and steps out the front door of cabin 27. She starts walking the short dirt path back to her own house, cabin 28. Sheila isn't worried in the slightest. She's just thinking about breakfast and her outfit. To her, this is just a boring, chilly walk on a Sunday morning. But as she steps onto the wooden porch of her home, she notices something a little strange. The woods around her are dead silent. I mean, usually you hear birds chirping or squirrels moving around. But today, there is nothing. But Sheila just shrugs it off. She probably thinks, oh, it's just too cold for the birds today. Or maybe she barely registers it at all because she's so focused on getting inside to warm up. And so she reaches out and grabs the front door knob. She expects it to be locked, but as soon as she touches it, it turns freely in her hand. This doesn't alarm her. She thinks, great, Mama's already up making coffee. She must have unlocked it for me. She expects to walk in and smell fresh brew and see her mom in the kitchen. She pushes the door open. It swings inward on silent hinges. As Sheila steps fully into the living room, she immediately knows something is wrong. She doesn't see a crime scene or anything like that. Instead, Sheila just sees a total mess. Furniture is overturned, lamps are broken, and the air smells weird. It doesn't smell like coffee. It smells metallic, like wet pennies. Then, Sheila's eyes are drawn to the center of the room where she sees these big piles of yellow blankets taken from the linen closet. She assumes the boys have built a fort, or maybe they had a roughhousing fight and trashed the place. She is just about to yell out for her mom to ask what is going on, when she looks closer at the bottom of the pile. Then Sheila sees it, sticking out from the wool, a sneaker. It belongs to her brother, John. And suddenly, she begins to see it. It's not a fort. Its body's covered with the yellow blankets. She screams. She turns around and sprints back out the door, gasping for air. The neighbors hear the screaming and rush inside to check what's going on. They see the bodies laying on the floor. They are moving slowly towards the bedroom of the children. They carefully push open the door, terrified of what they will see. But here is the miracle. The three young boys, Rick, Greg, and Justin, are just lying there. They are alive. It looks like they are unharmed. But as the neighbors do a frantic head count, the horror shifts again. They go back to the living room and lift the yellow blankets. They find Sue. They find John. They find his friend Dana, all bound with medical tape and electrical cords. 3 dead in the living room, 3 alive in the back. That makes 6. But there are 7 people in this family. So they immediately run to the last bed, 12-year-old Tina's bed. It is empty. The blankets are pulled back. They touch the mattress. It is stone cold. Tina isn't under the blankets with the others. She isn't hiding in the closet. She's gone. They run around looking for Tina, but they couldn't find her. Immediately after the bodies are discovered, the police come out with their official theory. Transients. Drifters. It's exactly what the town wants to hear. It makes everyone feel like this was just a random robbery gone wrong, just bad luck. However, if you actually sit down and look at the evidence, that drifter theory falls apart instantly. I mean, think about the weapons. Drifters and robbers bring their own tools, guns, crowbars, maybe a heavy bat. They don't break into a house, go into the kitchen, rummage through a drawer, find a cheap steak knife, and then use it with such personal, explosive rage that the steel blade bends 30 degrees against a human bone. That doesn't look like a simple robbery. It suggests something far more personal. No forced entry, no smashed windows. Whoever it was, they walked right in. These killers were comfortable enough to open the bathroom cabinet and search for medical tape to bind the victims. They knew the house. They knew the hiding spots. Then, there are the 3 boys in the back bedroom. When investigators first questioned them, they said they had slept through the entire night. They claimed they didn't hear the struggle, didn't hear the screams, didn't hear the violence unfolding just feet away. At first, that seemed possible. They were young. The door was closed. Maybe exhaustion had pulled them into a deep sleep. But as detectives processed the scene, they noticed something that raised quiet questions. There was blood inside the cabin beyond the immediate crime scene. In and around the boys' bedroom, there were indications that at least some movement may have occurred during the night. It didn't prove anything. It didn't tell a full story. But it made investigators wonder. Did the boys truly sleep through it all? Or did someone wake up, even briefly, and step into a nightmare no child should ever see? Over the years, accounts surrounding that bedroom have shifted. Statements were inconsistent. Memories changed. Trauma has a way of doing that, especially to children. To this day, what happened behind that thin bedroom door remains unknown. Did they hear nothing? Or did they hear everything and survive by staying very, very still? No official report ever conclusively answered that question. 3 years passed. 3 years of waiting for a ransom note that never came. They just want Tina back. They knew Sue, John, and Dana were gone. But because Tina was missing, they let themselves believe that maybe, just maybe, she had been kidnapped and was still alive somewhere. They waited for a phone call. They waited for a ransom note. They waited for anything. But then, in April 1984, that hope was completely shattered. A bottle collector was walking through a remote area called Camp 18 in Butte County. I mean, this is literally in the middle of nowhere, almost 100 miles away from the cabin. And as he was walking through the brush, he looked down and found a fragment of a human skull. Dental records would later confirm that it was Tina Sharp. But here's the crazy part. Right after they found the bones, and before the police made it public, the station gets a call. The voice on the other end knew exactly whose remains they were. They knew it was Tina. So, someone out there knew exactly where she had been taken, and they had kept that secret for 3 years while her family prayed for a miracle that was never going to happen. With all of them now confirmed dead, the case went ice cold for the next 30 years. The surviving family members probably assumed the police had done everything humanly possible back in 1981. They trusted that if there was a clue, it had been found, tested, and cleared. They lived with this heavy, unresolved grief, thinking the killer was some phantom drifter who vanished into the wind. However, in 2013, a new set of detectives decided to crack open the old dusty boxes to see if they missed anything. And as they were sifting through the paperwork, they found a sealed envelope that had never been logged as evidence. It was never logged in the system. They cut it open, pulled out the paper, and their jaws hit the floor. The letter was from the neighbor, Marty Smart, written to his wife shortly after the murders. And in his own handwriting, plain as day, he wrote, "I've paid the price of your love, and now that I've bought it with 4 people's lives, you tell me we are through. Great. What else do you want?" To many, that reads like a confession. It is right there. But because the lead investigator in 1981 was allegedly good friends with Marty, that letter was shoved into a box and ignored for 3 decades. And finally, just to twist the knife a little further, in 2016, someone found a rusted claw hammer in a dried-up pond nearby, exactly where Marty had hinted he'd gotten rid of it. But by then, it was too late. Marty Smart died a free man in 2000. So the truth didn't just walk away. It was buried in a cardboard box while a family waited for justice that would never come. So, what's your theory about this case? Drop your comments, and if you want more stories like this, subscribe and hit the bell. New case drops every week. Thanks for watching.